How you guys doing? Welcome in here to Rover Sports. Some breaking NFL news is that John Defilippo, the coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings, has been fired today by Minnesota. This is very surprising. John Defilippo was the coordinator for Johnny Manziel. Johnny Defilippo was a coordinator. He was a QB coach for Carson Wentz. He was very, very successful being the quarterback coach for Carson Wentz. But he also had Doug Peterson and Frank Reich. He also had other stops in New York. He helped out Eli Manning in 2010. So Defilippo has been around the NFL for a long, long time. Now, Defilippo, when you hear Defilippo speak, he's an excellent speaker. He seems like an excellent communicator. If you go on YouTube and watch Defilippo describe how Zach Ertz is able to get open, I enjoy it. I think Defilippo has a vertical passing game, and I thought and think that Defilippo, I thought he would be a great head coach for Kirk Cousins because under Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz was incredible. I thought Kyle Rudolph would be just as good under John Defilippo, and I thought that this offense would roll. But when you look at the numbers of John Defilippo, these are the numbers this year that I want you guys to pay attention to. These numbers this year. I'm going to get the numbers, okay? It's these numbers right here that I need you guys to listen to, these numbers that I had to look up, okay? So John Defilippo, this year, Minnesota, per rushing attempt, gets 4.1 yards a rushing attempt. That ranks them 28th in football. Here's Defilippo. For all of the plays that Defilippo calls, the Minnesota Vikings run the football 33% of the time. That ranks them near dead last, 31st in the NFL. They only run it 33% of the time. In terms of running yards a game, they only get 85, 30th in the NFL. 21 rushes a game, only 21 attempts, 31st in the NFL. What do you think the time of possession would be for a team that barely runs the football? Well, their defense is pretty great. They're top 5 in just about every category, top 7. You know, their secondary is excellent. Mike Hughes, Mackenzie Alexander, Rhodes, and Waynes, which are hurt right now. But then you have Anthony Barr. You just have great players everywhere. You picked up Richardson. You have Griffin. When he plays is very good. Okay? Their time of possession's 24th. Their third down conversion rate, 22nd. Yards per pass attempt, not even that good, okay? 4.7 yards a pass attempt, which is really not very good. And you could maybe blame that on Kirk Cousins, but pass attempts per game, Kirk's chucking the ball 40 times a game. That's not a recipe for success. That's not balance. You should try to achieve balance, okay? Now let's talk about Pat Shurmur, what he was able to do with the same Minnesota Vikings team. In 2017, first of all, let me read you this schedule, okay? Because everyone thinks Mike Zimmer's a very good coach. He's a good defensive coach. He's not the easiest guy to get along with. He has a stubborn personality for sure, and that's why Defilippo and him batted heads. But this is a huge hurdle for Defilippo because Defilippo, when you look at his career, Flip's career, he hasn't been able to stay in one spot for 2+ years, and he's never been considered the guy. I guess that there's a reason in NFL circles that Frank Reich was allowed to have a head coaching job with the Colts, Patricia, Lions, Steve Wilkes. These guys all beat out Defilippo because Defilippo hasn't been able to stick wherever he's been, okay? He's a revolving door, and that's a concern. For as much as we like Defilippo, these are concerns. Here's 2017. Before I read you the stats, These are the teams that Minnesota won en route to their 13-3 schedule with Case Keenum. Guys that Minnesota fans happen to love is Case Keenum, okay? By the way, how's Case Keenum doing this year? He ranks bottom 10 in just about every statistical category. The Broncos are 6-6. They just lost to the 49ers. They are really average. Their head coach might get fired, and Case Keenum eventually is only going to start for another year. So all of you Vikings fans that want Case Keenum, he's going out to Denver. I don't even think he's going to be starting past next year. So all of you saying that Case Keenum's better than Kirk Cousins, I really strongly disagree with that opinion. But it's an opinion, and you guys are frankly allowed to have it. Here's the schedule last year, which was the gauntlet of all schedules, and I say that with sarcasm. The Minnesota Vikings last year had the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL. They had the 27th strength of schedule. Okay, they played the Bears to start off. Okay, they were 2-2. They went to Chicago, played John Fox and the Bears, who sucked last year. Then they played the Packers. I believe it was Brett Hundley. Okay, they were able to beat the Packers. Whatever, it might have been actually at home. Aaron Rodgers might have played them last year. Okay, they beat that team. They also played at home. They played Joe Flacco and the Ravens, which were average and did not make the playoffs last year. Then they played the Cleveland Browns. The Browns absolutely suck with Hugh Jackson. They're able to beat the Browns. They played the Redskins at the Redskins. This is all during their winning streak, okay? So they had Redskins, Browns, Ravens, Packers, Bears. None of those teams made the playoffs. The NFC North last year, garbage. Horrible conference. Horrible. None of the other teams even made the wild card, and you had Brett Hundley trotting out there on the field. They did beat the Rams at home. That was a big accomplishment. Their defense played great in that game. Incredible defense, okay? Give them credit. Then they played the Lions. They went and played at Atlanta. That was a good win. It was 14-9. They were barely able to win. Then they had to play Carolina. They lost to Cam Newton in that game, and then they barely got past the Saints in the playoffs. They played the Packers and the Bears. They had the easiest schedule that they're ever going to have, okay? But this is also why Pat Shurmur might be a better coordinator than John Defilippo. Even though Defilippo is amazing with these interviews, even though Defilippo and his offense is high-flying and fun, and they air the ball out, which I like as a proponent of the passing game, these are Pat Shurmur's statistics compared to Defilippo's rushing statistics, okay? So the Vikings last year ran the ball 30 times a game, which ranked them third in the NFL, okay? They were first in third down conversions last year. You can credit Case Keenum for that. You can credit Pat Shurmur certainly for that. In terms of when they're running the ball, it's on 45% snaps per game. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings got 117 yards a game on the ground, which ranked them 8th. Time of possession, third, 32 minutes, 7 seconds time of possession. They are running the ball on 45% of snaps during their games, okay? It says that they might have averaged like 45 rushes a game or some crazy stuff. No, it might have been 45% of the time they were running the ball on their snaps, compared to what I just said was 33% of the time. So 45%. So they ran the ball last year, top 3 in attempts per game, 30 rushes a game. They ended up not even doing that well in yards per carry, but they kept at it. And that's why they had third and shorts. And that's why the time of possession last year was third as opposed to 24th. Okay? And listen, right now, the Vikings are 22nd in third down conversions. It's all about running the ball. You have Dalvin Cook. You have Latavius Murray. You have a stable of backs that you can rely on. And for Minnesota right now, I think that they made the right decision. Because this year, you look at the NFC wildcard right now, you sucked versus the Seattle Seahawks, okay? Mike Zimmer saw that Brian Schottenheimer runs the ball first in the NFL, and that's why the defense is getting whipped in time of possessions and everything. You're making Kirk Cousins' job more difficult. When you look at the NFL and you look at what guys are getting paid, Derek Carr makes about the same amount as Kirk Cousins. Matt Stafford makes the same amount. Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? That's the going rate for quarterbacks. You look at the NFL, I can name you about 12 quarterbacks that can win you a championship. It's Cam, it's Drew, it's Aaron, it's Tom, it's Russell Wilson, okay? You look at Rivers, who's okay. You look at Ben Roethlisberger, who I'd rank really highly still. Deshaun Watson, Mahomes, Carson Wentz. Kirk Cousins is probably going to be 13th on your list. He's right there with Dak Prescott. Both guys are good enough to win. You saw Kirk Cousins make big throws down the field. He does take chances. I like his arm talent. I like what he can do with this passing game, but the Vikings players are getting frustrated. It was a good time to fire Defilippo because now you can get back to running the ball, put less on Kirk Cousins' plate. The defenders of Kirk Cousins, and I'm a Kirk Cousins defender, I don't think he's terrible. A lot of people think that he's dreadful, but you look at the NFL, who are you going to get that's going to be much, much better than Kirk Cousins? I look at Kirk Cousins and he's a gamer, he's tough, he's not a Matthew Stafford, he's not an Andy Dalton, he's not a Tannehill. He makes clutch plays and he has great leadership skills and he makes things work. And I'm telling you right now, once Stefanski runs the football with Dalvin Cook, it will open up the play action game. And if Stephon Diggs is going to bother you about getting touches and he's going to be really annoying, then screw Diggs. Then stop giving him the ball. Then if he's going to be annoying, then ship him off. You have Adam Thielen there who doesn't seem to be as annoying as Diggs. So if Diggs is annoying or Thielen's annoying, screw them. You don't have to force in footballs to wide receivers that are acting immature. Everybody has to buy in to this thing, and I like the move right now because you have the Dolphins coming up. You can beat the Dolphins, you can beat the Lions, you can get into the playoffs. Then you go to Chicago and you take your defense there for the first round playoff game. A team you're familiar with, a team you can get after Trubisky with. You control the time of possession, you run the football down their throats and attempt to do it. And your offensive line is going to get better when you run it. The Giants' offensive line got better when they prevented the pass attempts from Eli and when they started to run the football. So that it's pretty damn simple now for Stefanski. It's running the ball, then going play action, and then you get your shots to Kyle Rudolph and your receivers because you have good enough receivers with Treadwell, Diggs, and Thielen. And that's why there's so much pressure on Cousins because everybody in the media says that you look at the weapons that Kirk Cousins has, and then they put all this unwanted pressure on the guy, that the fact that he has weapons, he should be spectacular, when really he has no help from his coordinator or his running game. Vikings made the right decision. Defilippo needs to take a hard look in the mirror about running the ball more. If he's a head coach somewhere, that ratio is going to have to get a lot better, in my opinion, if that team is going to have success. And I think Defilippo needs to be a coordinator somewhere else, be a quarterback's coach, continue to succeed, because he didn't succeed in this role, succeed. And I'm telling you, the Vikings are going to be better off for this move. I expect the Vikings to roll. I expect their team to start winning more. I expect the Vikings to be in the playoffs. I expect them to compete with Chicago. And I expect Kirk to play better and this offense to roll better. I think it was a good move by the Vikings. I do. And I think Defilippo needs work. And I trust in Kirk Cousins. I don't put the blame on Cousins at all. I think the blame is on John Defilippo.